beneath the endless veil of ice, where winds howl like ancient voices and shadows stretch across a frozen horizon. The Arctic guards its secrets. It is a land of paradox, barren yet abundant, desolate yet alive, silent yet filled with echoes that seem older than time itself. Here, beneath the crushing weight of ice and the roar of polar storms, lie caves untouched by human eyes. Caves that may hold not only the memory of the Earth's past, but whispers of worlds that once were. This is no ordinary wilderness. To step into the Arctic is to walk into a realm where the line between myth and reality blurs, where every gust of wind feels like a warning, and every shard of ice seems carved with hidden meaning. Its frozen seas conceal chambers of glass-blue silence. Its glaciers breathe with unseen rivers, and its caves, sealed for millennia, stand like vaults of forgotten knowledge. If you find wonder in the hidden corners of our world, join us. Like, share, and subscribe as we descend together into the mysteries of the Arctic. Tonight, we uncover what the ice has guarded for ages, the hidden ice caves, the old secrets, the eternal silence beneath polar winds and frozen seas. The Arctic begins not with a sound, but with its absence. To arrive here is to step into a silence so vast it feels like it has weight, pressing down upon the body, filling the lungs with stillness. The horizon stretches endlessly, a white canvas broken only by jagged ridges of ice and the faint blur where sky and land dissolve into each other. There are no forests, no rivers, no birdsong, only the wind, restless and unyielding, carving its stories into snow and sculpting the land like an invisible hand. The first sensation is brightness. The snow reflects the sun like shattered mirrors scattered across the earth. Light pierces the eyes even when closed, burning through the lids with a pale fire that cannot be escaped. Each step crunches against the frost, echoing across the emptiness like a drumbeat in a hollow cathedral, and still the silence lingers, swallowing the sound as though the land itself resents intrusion. Travelers speak of the Arctic, silence as a presence, something alive, something aware. It does not simply exist, it hovers. The stillness is not gentle but commanding, like a guardian that watches without blinking. Every movement feels noticed, every breath feels borrowed. To linger here is to confront the weight of a world untouched, a place where time has no rhythm, where days blur into nights beneath the endless watch of the polar sky. Yet silence does not mean lifelessness. The Arctic breathes in ways that are subtle, almost imperceptible. Snowdrifts shift like restless spirits. Ice creaks as it expands and contracts with the cold. Somewhere, deep beneath the frozen crust, rivers of water carve their hidden courses, unseen by human eyes. Even the stillness contains motion, though it unfolds too slowly for impatient hearts to recognize as the wind rises. It speaks in tones both fierce and mournful. It rushes across the plains like a choir of ghosts, whistling through narrow gaps in ice, shrieking at the edges of cliffs, whispering over endless fields of snow. Its song is one of warning, but also of beauty, a melody composed by the earth itself, sung across centuries without pause. The Arctic has no need for human words. It tells its stories in currents of air and the shifting of frost. The sky above is a mirror of the land below, vast and mercurial. Some days the sun drifts low, casting shadows so long they stretch like dark rivers across the ice. Other times, clouds gather thick and gray, sealing the horizon in gloom, turning day into twilight. And then there are the nights, when the heavens awaken in color, when the aurora ripples across the firmament in green, violet, and gold. The lights move like dancers. To witness such a sky is to feel both infinitesimal and chosen, as though the universe has parted its veil for just a moment to reveal a glimpse of its deeper mysteries. But, even under this spectacle, the silence returns. It is a silence that burrows into the mind, stripping away the noise of memory and thought. In its place comes awareness of breath, of heartbeat, of the fragile warmth of life against the crushing cold. To endure it is to learn humility. To embrace it is to understand that this land does not bend for us. It waits, indifferent and eternal, for us to adapt or to vanish. The Arctic is not empty. It is full of stillness, full of space, full of secrets that lie buried beneath ice thicker than mountains. What we call desolation is instead a cathedral of frost, a place where the earth keeps its oldest truths sealed in glassy walls. Here, silence is not an absence, but a presence, a voice older than language itself. It is not meant to comfort. It is meant to remind us that we are small, and that some mysteries were never meant to be spoken aloud. The journey begins with silence, a silence that consumes, a silence that teaches, a silence that dares us to listen. For within it lies the first key to the Arctic's hidden heart. In the stillness of the Arctic, even the smallest movement becomes monumental. A drifting snowflake, carried on the faintest breeze, feels like a signal, a messenger reminding us that even silence is alive with motion. Each crystal is born from cloud and cold, shaped in a pattern that will never be repeated, falling into the great white expanse to join billions of others. And yet, for a moment, each one glimmers distinct, catching the faint light as though whispering, "I was here." Beneath the snow lies a world unseen. The ice itself is alive with memory, layers upon layers, compressed through centuries, each one holding fragments of an ancient sky. Trapped inside are whispers of the earth's breath from ages past, tiny pockets of air that once circled above forests, now turned to stone. Deserts long erased, oceans shifted into new shapes. Scientists call them samples, but in truth, they are frozen echoes of forgotten worlds, locked away in crystal tombs. To touch this ice is to place a hand upon time itself, to feel the weight of history in the cold gut. Yet history here does not lie dormant. It creaks and groans, shifting under invisible pressure. Entire glaciers drift forward inch by inch, as though they are rivers disguised in stone. Sometimes they crack, the sound splitting the air with the force of a cannon, echoing across the empty plains like a reminder that the land itself is never still. In these moments, silence is shattered, and what remains is awe, the realization that we walk not on stable ground, but on a living, breathing sheet of ice that stretches deep into the bones of the earth. Travelers who dare to cross this land speak of strange illusions. On the horizon, shapes rise and shimmer, mountains that vanish as you approach, lakes that glisten only to dissolve into mist. The cold bends the air, bending vision with it. In such moments, reality itself feels fragile, like glass that could fracture with a single step. The Arctic plays tricks, as though testing those who trespass, asking, "Do you truly belong here?" And perhaps no one does. This is not a land made for us. The cold strips flesh, freezes breath, gnaws at bone with an unrelenting hunger. Even wrapped in layers of fur and fabric, even armed with fire and steel, the body remains fragile against the immensity of the frost. Here, survival is not victory, it is a bargain, struck each moment anew, between warmth and the endless appetite of the cold. But in this fragile existence, there is clarity. Each breath becomes precious. Each flicker of fire, each shared meal, each sound of footsteps, not one's own, feels like a miracle. In the silence of the Arctic, we are forced to notice what elsewhere we forget, that life itself is rare, that warmth is sacred, that companionship is salvation. The stillness strips away illusion, leaving only what matters, and still there is beauty. A beauty that terrifies as much as it inspires. Ice caves open like cathedrals beneath the ground, their ceilings hung with spears of frozen water, glowing blue as though lit from within. The walls glisten like glass, capturing light and bending it into patterns that dance along the floor. To step inside is to enter another world, one untouched by time, one carved by silence and frozen breath. It is said that such caves guard secrets, fossils of creatures long vanished, ancient carvings, or perhaps nothing at all, but the humbling reminder of nature's artistry. Here, the silence deepens. Within the caves, sound collapses, swallowed by walls of ice. Even a whisper feels dangerous, as though it might wake something that has slept for centuries. It is a silence that feels protective, as though guarding the secrets sealed within. Some who enter say they feel watched, though they are alone. Others claim they hear faint echoes, not of their own voices, but of something older, speaking in a language without words. The Arctic keeps its truths beneath layers of stillness and frost. To enter its silence is to step into the unknown, into a realm that both resists and reveals, that tests and teaches, that humbles and terrifies. And it is here, in the very heart of silence, that the journey begins to shift from simply enduring the cold to understanding its ancient purpose at first glance. The Arctic seems barren, a stage set only for snow and silence, but lean closer, and the illusion begins to fracture. Beneath the layers of frost, beneath the seeming emptiness, the land stirs with a pulse, so faint it can be missed by hurried eyes. Life, fragile yet relentless, threads itself into the fabric of this frozen world. Tiny tracks appear in the snow, delicate imprints vanishing as quickly as they are made. They belong to foxes cloaked in white fur, so pure they vanish into the drifts, their sharp eyes reflecting a cunning born of hunger. They move silently. Each step is measured, every movement calculated. For here, survival is a ritual rehearsed through countless generations. Above, wings cut through the air with a sound barely audible against the wind. Snowy owls perch upon ridges of ice, their feathers blending with the horizon, their gaze sharp and unblinking. They watch with patience, unmoved by the endless expanse, as though they are sentinels of a realm untouched by time. Their calls echo rarely, but when they do, the sound is eerie, a reminder that even silence has guardians. Beneath the frozen seas, other lives stir. Seals press against hidden breathing holes, their dark eyes glimmering like mirrors to another world. They surface cautiously, breaking the ice with quiet splashes, before vanishing once more into the depths. Below them, unseen currents flow through black water, carrying fish that glimmer like shards of silver light. Even here, in the crushing cold, the ocean breathes, teeming with secrets that resist the stillness above. And then there are the whales. Their songs vibrate through the water, deep and resonant, carrying for miles beneath the ice. The sound is haunting. Each call is an echo of a lineage stretching back millions of years. a reminder that these seas have always been alive, long before our eyes first gazed upon them. Their presence breaks the illusion of emptiness, reminding us that even silence has a heartbeat. Yet, not all signs of life are so visible. Beneath the ice, where darkness reigns eternal, scientists have found microorganisms locked within frozen water, surviving against all odds. They wait in stillness, their existence almost invisible, yet undeniable. They are reminders that even in the harshest realms, life clings on, hidden but persistent, whispering of resilience. The Arctic is not barren, it is concealed. It does not reveal itself easily, but only to those willing to look closer, to listen longer, to move with patience. In this way, it mirrors time itself, vast, secretive, and full of stories written in whispers rather than shouts. But life here also struggles. Caribou, moving in slow herds across the snow, face the endless hunger of wolves that stalk silently at the edge of vision. The chase, when it comes, is swift and brutal. The silence ruptured by pounding hooves, the cold air split by a cry that vanishes almost as soon as it is born. Death, too, belongs to the Arctic's silence. It does not linger. It is absorbed into the snow, reclaimed by the frost, folded into the endless cycle of survival. And for those who wander here, whether human or beast, the lesson is the same. Nothing belongs to you. Food, warmth, shelter, these are borrowed, fleeting, always threatened. The silence is not passive, it is a law, demanding humility. Those who resist it are swallowed. Those who respect it may endure. As dusk begins to spread across the snow, the light changes. The horizon glows faintly pink, brushing the ice with hues so soft they seem like dreams. Shadows stretch long across the plains, and the silence deepens again. It is not empty silence, not anymore. It is filled with echoes of life, with unseen breath, with the quiet struggle of creatures that endure. And as night falls, the sky ignites. Curtains of green and violet unfurl across the heavens, shimmering with an otherworldly glow. The aurora dances like fire made of silk, moving in silence across the firmament. To those who watch, it feels like a message, perhaps from the earth itself, perhaps from something older. A reminder that even in silence there is wonder, even in cold there is fire. For centuries, the Arctic called to wanderers like a whisper in the dark, a promise of discovery, a dare. And yet, each who stepped into this realm soon learned that silence here is not stillness, it is resistance. It is a force that tests flesh, spirit, and will with the quiet cruelty of cold. The first explorers came armed with hope and hubris, their ships heavy with ambition and cargo. They saw the white horizon as a blank canvas waiting to be charted, mapped, conquered. But the Arctic does not yield to conquest. Its silence answered with walls of ice, crushing wooden hulls into splinters. Entire expeditions vanished into this quiet, their names left only on fading pages, their fates written into the snow. Those who survived spoke of a silence so heavy it pressed upon the lungs, a weight that made every breath. Days would pass without sound. Men began to hear whispers carried on the wind, voices that were not there, songs that had no source. The silence was not absence, they said. It was presence. It was something alive. Tents collapsed under storms that howled like unseen predators. Supplies froze solid in their barrels, fingers blackened. Yet still, explorers pressed onward, driven by visions of fame, of discovery, of glory carved into history. And each time, The Arctic reminded them, "You are guests here, and unwelcome ones." The silence seeped into their minds. Without sound, without warmth, men turned inward, their thoughts echoing too loudly within their own skulls. Some became erratic, speaking to shadows in the snow. Others grew listless, their wills drained until they no longer lifted their eyes. In the silence, despair takes shape. It does not arrive with violence, but with stillness, with the endless waiting that wears away at courage. And yet there was beauty. Amid suffering, some witnessed sights that shook them to awe. Vast ice arches, rising like cathedrals of glass, glowing blue beneath a pale sun. Frozen seas stretching so smooth, they reflected the sky as a second world. Stars so sharp they seemed close enough to pluck from the heavens. These moments, fragile as they were, carried them onward, keeping despair at bay for one more step, one more breath. That human ambition is small, that flesh is fragile, that the earth is older. Many turned back, broken but alive, carrying the Arctic within them like a scar. Others never returned, their bones scattered beneath snow that never tells its secrets, even today. When steel ships and satellites pierce the white silence, the lesson remains the same. Technology may push deeper, maps may fill with new lines, but the Arctic does not surrender. Its silence waits unchanged for each who dares to enter. It swallows engines as it once swallowed oars. It chills metal as it once chilled flesh. It whispers the same warning, "You do not belong," as the wind rises across the frozen plains. Snow whirls into a white veil that erases horizon and path alike. For those caught in it, silence becomes blindness, and blindness becomes fear. The Arctic closes its hand, and in that closing, the white silence speaks louder than any storm. You are nothing here. Only the ice remains, and when dawn breaks, after a night of endless shadow, it reveals once more the truth of this land, that silence is not emptiness, it is power. It is the first law of the Arctic, and it waits, still, eternal, beyond the reach of human voices, beneath the endless whiteness. Beneath the plains of ice that stretch like a second sky, turned downward, lies a world few eyes have ever seen. It is a kingdom hidden in shadow, carved not by human hands, but by time itself, the frozen heart of the Arctic dot here. The silence above becomes something deeper. It is not merely stillness, but a pressure, a weight pressing down through layers of ice that have grown thicker with every passing century, with each snowfall, with each winter that never ended. The ice pressed tighter, harder, until it became a vault, sealing within it a record of Earth's forgotten past. The caves are not marked on maps. They do not open themselves willingly. Their entrances hide behind shattered ridges and crevasses, places where the ice splits under stress, revealing only the faintest hint of darkness. For explorers who stumble upon them, it feels less like discovery and more like trespass. Step inside, and the world shifts. The outside light fades into a dim, ghostly glow. Walls of ice rise like pillars of glass, smooth and rippled, glowing blue from the faint sun filtering through above. Every sound echoes the crunch of boots, the drip of water, the shallow breath fogging into the frozen air. In these caves, silence is magnified, stretched until even the smallest noise feels like a confession. The air is colder, sharper, almost metallic. Touch the walls, and you feel the weight of millennia, the press of countless winters, compressed into frozen stone. Within the ice, strange patterns swirl, trapped bubbles of ancient air, delicate lines formed by storms long forgotten. Some see faces in these patterns, shapes of creatures that once roamed the earth, now locked forever in crystal dot. But the caves hold more than beauty. They hold danger. Narrow tunnels twist without warning. Passages collapse without sound. A wrong step and the ceiling may thunder down, entombing forever the intruder who dared to deep. The frozen heart protects itself, and it is ruthless in its defense. Yet the deeper one goes, the stranger the silence becomes. In certain chambers, the air feels alive, humming faintly, vibrating as though the ice itself carries a memory, a voice not yet spoken. Scientists call it resonance, the natural sound of frozen caverns shifting and groaning. But to those who stand there, the explanation feels too thin. The sound is not random. It is patterned. It feels like a heartbeat. Tales of lost civilizations, frozen beneath the ice, their ruins preserved in vaults of crystal. Stories of creatures that never left, sealed alive in eternal slumber. And whispers that the ice itself remembers, that within its frozen veins are the voices of the earth, waiting for someone to listen. What makes the frozen heart so haunting is its permanence. Above storms rage and winds scream, but below everything is still, a stillness untouched for thousands of years. In the deepest caverns, it is said that you can feel time itself, slow, as though you are no longer walking through space, but through history. And yet, with every year, with every degree of rising temperature, this world shifts. Walls drip where once they stood firm. Passages collapse where once they endured. What was sealed away for millennia is stirring, not by choice, but by force. The frozen heart is bleeding. The explorers who enter now do so with urgency. They know the ice is changing faster than ever before. They know that what is lost to melting will never be found again. The frozen heart, once invincible, is beginning to reveal its secrets, not because it wishes to, but because it has no choice. What secrets lie within? What stories are etched into walls of ancient ice, waiting to be read before they vanish into water? The answers lie deeper still, in caverns no map has charted, where the silence grows heavier and the heartbeat of the frozen heart grows louder. The descent into the frozen heart is not a straight path. It is a spiral, a slow unraveling into darkness, where each turn of the tunnel feels like a step further away from the living world above. The deeper one moves, the less the ice glows with daylight. Instead, the walls pulse faintly with their own inner fire, a cold blue luminescence, like the veins of a sleeping giant. Explorers describe the sensation as otherworldly. The air grows heavy, colder than the body expects, until breath becomes shallow, stolen away before lungs can fully claim it. Frost forms on eyelashes, on the tiny hairs of skin, turning every movement into a crystalline mask. The silence deepens into something nearly physical. It clings to the skin, nestles in the ears, until the sound of a heartbeat feels too loud, too intrusive, as if the cave itself disapproves of the trespasser's living presence. Sometimes the ice speaks back, not in words, not in voices, but in groans and cracks that rumble through the cavern like distant thunder. A fissure shifts a mile away, bouncing off frozen walls until it feels as though the cave is alive. Restless breathing around you, it is here. In these deeper chambers that the secrets of the Arctic caves reveal themselves, the ice is not uniform. It is layered. Each layer is a chapter written in snowstorms and ancient winds. Some hold flecks of volcanic ash from eruptions that happened before humans ever spoke language. Others cradle bubbles of air older than the pyramids, carrying whispers of climates long extinct. But sometimes there are more tangible discoveries. A tusk, yellowed and warped, sealed inside a frozen wall. The remains of a creature that wandered too far and became part of the glacier itself. Or stranger still, geometric shapes, angles and patterns pressed into the ice, so precise they feel deliberate. Scientists debate these endlessly. Are they fractures, accidents of nature, or evidence of something forgotten? For the explorers, standing before them in dim headlamps, the distinction hardly matters. The effect is the same awe, unease. The prickling sensation that the frozen heart is more than geology. It is memory and perhaps even monument. Yet beauty and danger intertwine here. The deeper tunnels are slick. Ice underfoot can crumble without warning, sending explorers into crevasses that yawn like open mouths. Some of these cracks plunge for hundreds of feet, their bottoms invisible, glowing faintly blue as if lit from another world. One misstep, and the silence would close around you forever. Even those who escape the physical dangers are not immune to the psychological ones. In the endless dark, where no horizon offers orientation, time unravels. Minutes stretch into hours, or perhaps hours compress into minutes. The human mind, deprived of sound and light, begins to invent both. Some explorers swear they hear voices whispering through the tunnels, fragments of language that vanish when listened to closely. Others report flickers of movement, shadows where no shadows should be. Science explains this as sensory deprivation, as the mind filling silence with its own inventions. But those who have felt it argue otherwise. They speak of presence, not imagined, but real. A watchfulness in the ice itself, as if the frozen heart is not merely preserving history, but guarding it. And there is reason to believe some things are indeed hidden here. Beneath layers of ice, scientists have detected vast chambers of liquid water, subglacial lakes untouched for millions of years. In some, microbial life stirs, thriving in complete isolation, feeding on minerals in the dark. These are living echoes of Earth's earliest biology, time capsules of life before sunlight. What else might such chambers conceal? Fossils of creatures never seen, traces of ecosystems erased from the surface, or perhaps, as legends whisper, the remnants of civilizations lost to history, swallowed and frozen before their names could be remembered. The frozen heart does not answer such questions, it only waits. With every year, its walls grow weaker, the groans of melting become louder, and with them, a truth becomes clear. If the frozen heart is a library of secrets, it is a library now burning, its shelves collapsing, its pages dissolving into the sea. Those who descend here are racing not against the dark, but against time itself. For once the frozen heart has melted, its secrets will be gone forever. The tunnels narrow further, winding like veins through the body of the glacier. At times, the explorers must crawl, pressing their bodies against walls so cold they burn through the fabric of their suits. At other times, the passages widen into vast chambers, cathedrals of ice so immense they seem designed for gods, not mortals. Here, the ceiling disappears into shadow, and the floor is an ocean of glass, frozen mid-motion, rippled as though it once moved and was stopped in an instant. Light behaves strangely in these chambers. A single headlamp beam scatters into infinite reflections, bouncing through the crystal walls until the entire cavern glows with a ghostly radiance. Shapes bend and distort. A shadow might stretch 100 feet across the ice. looming monstrous though its source is only a single human frame. Every gesture becomes magnified, every movement haunted by its reflection. The explorers whisper, though no one tells them to. It is instinct. The frozen heart feels like sacred ground. To speak loudly here would be to break something fragile, something ancient. Even breath seems intrusive, clouding into vapor that lingers too long, as though reluctant to vanish. But awe is always tempered by unease. The ice is alive with sound cracks, sighs, faint groans that reverberate endlessly. A drip of melting water echoes like a drumbeat, repeated 1,000 times in the crystalline acoustics. Each noise is magnified until it becomes impossible to know its origin. Was that sound beside you, above you, or deep within the glacier? The uncertainty gnaws at the mind. Light refracts through ice into colors that should not exist. Emerald glows, crimson halos, violet streaks. They shimmer along the walls like living fire, tricking the eyes into seeing doors where there are none, stairways leading nowhere, faces pressed into the translucent blue. Some explorers have sworn they saw entire figures suspended in the ice, tall, indistinct, too proportioned to be accidents. Science dismisses them as pareidolia, the brain imposing meaning onto random shapes. Yet those who have stood here insist otherwise, still deeper. Rivers of liquid water flow silently, hidden beneath the glacier's skin. Their currents can be felt, but not seen. A low vibration in the floor beneath boots, a reminder that this is not solid ground. It is a world in motion, slow but unstoppable. Each chamber is temporary, each tunnel a fleeting passage. What is here today may be gone tomorrow, collapsed or drowned. It is within this shifting labyrinth that the most haunting discoveries have been made. Objects sealed inside ice for millennia, bones, tools, fragments of wood that have no business existing in a place without trees. These remnants raise questions science has not yet answered. Did they drift here from elsewhere, carried by winds and waters long ago? Or are they proof of something more unsettling, a forgotten presence that once called the Arctic home? The caves seem to encourage such speculation. Their silence feels loaded, as though it hides intention. Some explorers describe the sensation of being guided, that the paths chosen at random lead them somewhere specific, as though the glacier itself wishes to reveal certain secrets while hiding others. It is a disquieting thought that the frozen heart might not just preserve history, but curate it. And then there is the sound. Not the groan of shifting ice, not the drip of melting water, but something different, low, rhythmic, almost like a heartbeat. It is rare, reported only by a handful of teams, but always described the same way. A steady thrum echoing from the depths, too regular to be natural. Scientists argue it is the resonance of ice under pressure, vibrations amplified through cavern walls. Yet those who have heard it cannot forget. To them, it was not geology, it was presence. To stand in the frozen heart is to confront the limits of human certainty. The walls record histories older than memory. The floors conceal rivers no eye will ever follow. The chambers echo with sounds that blur the line between science and myth. Each step deeper feels like trespassing into a library that was never meant to be read. And still, explorers descend. They descend because wonder outweighs fear, because mystery demands witness, because silence itself dares them to continue. The deeper they go, the more the ice seems to resist, closing in, narrowing, forcing them to crawl, to squeeze, to risk. But the pull of what lies further inside, unseen, unheard, waiting, is stronger. And so, step by step, they continue downward, into shadows that glow, into echoes that feel alive, into secrets that should not be uncovered. The descent grows treacherous. Tunnels twist like serpents, spiraling downward in steep, icy coils. The explorers move cautiously, every step measured, their crampons clinking softly against the frozen walls. Rope lines trail behind them, anchors hammered into cracks, each knot a silent prayer that the ice will hold. Here, gravity itself feels heavier, pulling them not just into the earth, but into something older, deeper, more profound. The walls close in until the explorers are crawling on hands and knees, squeezing through gaps so narrow their shoulders scrape. Helmets knock against the ceiling, the sound reverberating like a bell through the ice. For long stretches, there is only darkness, broken by the weak halo of headlamps. Claustrophobia presses in, breaths grow loud, ragged, filling the tunnels with the rasp of effort and fear. And then, suddenly, the ice opens. The passage spits them into a void so vast it swallows sound itself. Their lights probe the abyss, revealing glimpses, but never the whole. A ceiling too high to measure, a floor lost in shadow. The explorers stand on a ledge, overlooking what seems less a chamber and more a subterranean world from above. The cavern looks alive. Curtains of ice hang like organ pipes, refracting light into shifting spectrums. Columns rise from below, fused with the ceiling as though holding up the weight of the world. The scale dwarfs imagination. No camera captures it fully. No word suffices. To describe it as a cave is to insult its immensity. It is a cathedral, a frozen cosmos, a heart beating at the center of the earth. The air here is colder, sharper, but it carries something else as well, a vibration, faint but unmistakable. The explorers feel it in their bones, a pulse beneath their boots. The ice shivers imperceptibly, not enough to threaten collapse, but enough to remind them that it moves, that it breathes. They descend carefully down a slope of packed snow, boots crunching softly. At the bottom, the floor is not solid. It is translucent, like glass. Beneath it, rivers of liquid water glow faintly blue, flowing in silence. Strange particles drift inside, shimmering like stars trapped beneath the ice. The sight. One explorer presses a gloved hand to the floor, swearing they can feel warmth radiating upward. Another insists they hear whispers rising through the frozen glass. Not words, not language, but patterns of sound, too deliberate to be chance. The cavern walls bear marks as well. Grooves, scratches, deep etchings that cannot be explained by natural pressure alone. Some form spirals, others resemble symbols, crude but intentional. Theories splinter immediately. Are these the scars of geology, or something more deliberate? Ancient markings, perhaps. A language of ice itself. No one agrees, but no one dismisses them either. And then there are the shapes, embedded in the walls, suspended within the glacier. Elongated forms, vaguely humanoid, preserved in perfect stillness. Some lean as if walking, others curl as if in sleep. Light bends around them strangely. Scientists will later argue they are tricks of refraction, distortions of ice layers, mimicking familiar shapes. But standing here, in the silence of this cavern, the explorers cannot shake the sense of being watched. The heartbeat returns, louder now, rhythmic thrum. It seems to come from everywhere and nowhere, vibrating in the walls, the floor, the air itself. Each pulse carries weight, pressing against their chests, quickening their own hearts until the rhythm aligns with theirs. The explorers exchange glances, wide-eyed, unsettled. None dare speak. To do so would be to acknowledge what they are all thinking, that they are no longer alone. Some kneel to collect samples, shards of ice, sediments scraped from walls, fragments too small to break the mystery. Others simply stand, overwhelmed, paralyzed between fear and awe. One, more daring than the rest, ventures further toward a narrowing fissure at the cavern's far end. They pause, shining their light into the crack, only to see the beams swallowed instantly. The darkness beyond does not reflect, does not glow. It consumes. In that moment, the cavern feels like a threshold, not an end, but a beginning. A place where the known world ends and another waits, patient and silent. The explorers know they cannot go further. Not now, perhaps not ever. The ice does not permit deeper trespass, but the glimpse is enough. Enough to haunt, enough to ensure that humanity's curiosity will never stop at the surface when they finally retreat. Climbing back through narrow passages, their bodies ache with exhaustion, but their minds burn with restless wonder. They have seen something that defies explanation, something that shifts the Arctic from a place of cold and emptiness into a vault of ancient secrets. The frozen heart has revealed itself, but only in fragments, enough to tantalize, enough to terrify, enough to ensure that the mystery remains. And as they emerge once more into the polar night, the wind howling across barren ice fields, the memory of that heartbeat follows them, steady, relentless, waiting. The Arctic is not only defined by its ice, but by the winds that sweep endlessly across its barren crown. They are not mere currents of air, but forces of memory, sculptors of landscape, carriers of history, whispered through frozen breath. Out here, the wind never rests. It claws at the snow, tears across the ridges, and howls through broken cliffs like a chorus of forgotten voices. For the unprepared, it is merciless. At -40, the gusts strip warmth from flesh in seconds, gnawing through layers of fabric, biting skin raw. Frostbite is not a slow march, but an ambush. Fingers stiffen, toes turn numb, faces burn red before falling into lifeless gray. The explorers learn quickly, in the Arctic, wind is not whether it is an adversary, yet there is beauty in its cruelty. Watch long enough, and the gales reveal their artistry. Snow lifts from the surface in ghostly sheets, curling and dancing like white fire over the plains. Plumes rise and twist into columns, swirling in the pale light of the sun that never fully sets nor rises. The horizon shimmers, blurred by veils of drifting frost, as if the world is half real. The wind paints landscapes in constant motion, and nothing here stays still. The sound of it is ceaseless, a low moan at first, stretching across the tundra, building into sharp whistles as it threads through cracks in the ice. Sometimes it mimics voices, eerie enough to stop a traveler mid-step, heart racing at the thought of another presence. To live in the Arctic is to learn that the wind speaks not in words, but in tones that echo deep inside the mind. There are moments, rare and fleeting, when the wind falls silent, a sudden hush, unnatural, pressing against the ears until even breath feels too loud. In these silences, explorers report the strangest sensations, as if the ice itself leans closer, as if something vast and unseen holds its breath alongside them. Then, without warning, the winds return, crashing like a tidal wave, leaving the silence shattered and forgotten. But the Arctic winds are not only sound and spectacle, they are carriers of time itself. Dust from ancient mountains, pollen from distant forests, even particles from volcanic eruptions thousands of miles away ride their currents. Within their invisible hands lie fragments of other worlds, drifting endlessly until captured by the ice. To study them is to uncover a global archive, a living memory, the past to the present. Legends among indigenous Arctic peoples speak of these winds as spirits, guardians, messengers, sometimes tricksters. They tell of travelers led astray by deceptive gusts, voices carried on the breeze, luring them deeper into the snow until the world disappeared. Others describe the winds as protectors, warning of storms, guiding hunters back to safety. Whether enemy or ally, the wind was always alive, always watching. For modern explorers, the winds are both a test and a guide. Compasses falter, GPS signals vanish under polar storms. But the movement of the snow, its patterns, its direction, speaks a language as old as the ice. The skilled learn to read it, to follow the drift, to sense where the land hides danger beneath thin sheets of frost. Still, nothing can prepare them for the blizzards. When the Arctic unleashes its full fury, the winds rise into a frenzy, blinding all vision beyond arm's length. Snow and ice blast with such force they cut skin, rattle bones, and swallow entire camps in minutes. In these storms, survival shrinks 2 inches, the thickness of a rope, the strength of a tent, the grip of a hand refusing to let go. Yet even in its most violent rage, the Arctic wind is more than destruction. It is also revelation. For in the storm's wake, the land reshapes itself, dunes of snow crest like waves upon the frozen ocean. Valleys appear where plains once lay, hidden crevices open to reveal chambers untouched for centuries. What the wind erases, it also uncovers. It is both thief and storyteller, destroyer and creator, standing in the heart of it. An explorer cannot help but feel small, a fleeting speck against the immensity of forces that move the planet. And yet, in that smallness, there is a strange clarity that humanity is not master here, but guest, humbled by the breath of the Arctic itself. Night in the Arctic is not a simple darkness. It is a shifting theater of light and wind, a stage where the heavens meet the ice in a performance older than memory. When the aurora awakens, it bends the air itself into ribbons of fire. Green, violet, and gold shimmer across the void, streaming like celestial rivers above the frozen plains. And yet, without the winds, the aurora would fall silent. It is the currents that twist and stretch those lights, bending them into veils that dance across the endless sky. Under these skies, explorers feel suspended between 2 worlds, one of ice, one of stars. The winds roar across the snowfields below, while the heavens blaze above, and in the space between, the human soul wavers, caught in awe, fear, and wonder all at once. Here, in this trembling balance, one realizes the Arctic winds are not bound to the earth alone. They are threads connecting land to sky, ice to infinity. There is a legend that speaks of the northern lights as the souls of the departed, carried by the breath of the wind into the heavens. When the aurora flickers, it is said to be the voices of ancestors speaking, calling across the frost. For those who live here, such tales are not superstition, but survival, a reminder that the land is alive, that the winds and the sky watch over them. Even when the world seems merciless, and merciless it often is, not all winds are gentle guides. Some descend with a violence that feels unnatural, almost sentient. Katabatic winds, icy torrents that tumble down from glaciers with the weight of entire mountains, roar without warning, tearing through valleys with the force of hurricanes. They flatten tents, flip sleds, and drive the cold into bones, until even the strongest stagger beneath their invisible fists. Many expeditions have ended in silence, lost to these sudden descents. Their names linger on maps, not as triumphs, but as warnings. Yet what draws explorers back, again and again, is not only conquest or knowledge, but the strange allure of that violence. To stand in the heart of a polar storm is to feel the edge of existence itself, to sense how fragile life is and how stubborn it can be. Every heartbeat becomes a victory, every breath stolen back from the jaws of the wind. The Arctic strips away all illusions, leaving only the raw, unyielding truth of survival. In the aftermath of storms, the silence returns, but it is never the same. Snow lies sculpted into waves, frozen crests like an ocean halted mid-motion. Crevices that were hidden are torn open. Ice caves are revealed, their entrances like mouths gaping in the frost, leading downward into mysteries long concealed. The winds, it seems, are not merely forces of destruction, but also keepers of secrets, revealing just enough to remind humanity of what remains unseen. Scientists have begun to listen more carefully to these winds. Within their howls are patterns. Within their particles are clues. By studying them, researchers trace the fingerprints of distant climates, uncovering ash from ancient eruptions, remnants of deserts, even whispers of human industry carried thousands of miles. The winds tell a story far greater than the Arctic itself, a story of a planet interconnected, fragile, and alive in ways we are only beginning to understand. But perhaps the most haunting lesson of the Arctic winds is their impermanence. The very currents that once carried eternal cold are shifting. Rising temperatures bend them into unfamiliar paths, breaking traditions as old as the ice. Storms arrive earlier, last longer, rage harder. Where once the wind was predictable in its brutality, it is now erratic, uncertain, and in that uncertainty lies the shadow of change, the reminder that what feels eternal can, in truth, be lost. For those who walk this frozen edge, there is no denying the pull of the winds. They terrify, they humble, they inspire. They are a reminder of what the world once was, and a warning of what it might become. Above all, they are a mirror. In their strength, we see our fragility. In their endlessness, we glimpse our fleeting nature. And in their silence, we hear the weight of mysteries yet untouched. The Arctic winds are not just weather, they are breath of the planet, of time, of forces beyond comprehension. To walk beneath them is to surrender, not in defeat, but in reverence, or here among the howls and the whispers. Humanity is reminded that it is not the master of nature, but its witness in the Arctic. Silence is never absolute. Even when the world seems still, the wind lingers, hidden in the hollows of ice, murmuring like a memory that refuses to fade. Step across a frozen ridge, and it rises, carrying with it a chorus of whispers that feel ancient, older than the ice itself. These are not random gusts. They seem to tell a story, shaping the landscape, as though the very air were an artist sculpting with invisible hands. Snow drifts, form ridges like frozen waves, curved and elegant, as if carved by chisels. Canyons widen under the relentless push of air, their walls smoothed into strange, abstract patterns that no human hand could imitate. Each gust carries fragments of worlds far away, salt from distant oceans, dust from forgotten deserts, even traces of fire from volcanoes, half a world distant. The Arctic winds are messengers, bearing the planet's breath across continents, weaving together the fates of lands that may never meet. These winds are alive, spirits that shape the balance of existence. They listen not only with their ears, but with their bones, feeling the direction, the rhythm, the weight of each gust. Their stories speak of hunters guided home by the voices in the wind, of warnings carried before storms, of ancestors who return through the cold to remind the living of their place in the circle of life. These tales are not superstition, they are survival. To ignore the wind is to invite death. To respect, it is to live, and respect is earned. Many who came here seeking conquest underestimated the force of the unseen. Shackleton, Nansen, Franklin, names etched in history, yet all of them bowed before the will of the wind. Ships trapped in ice were splintered not only by pressure, but by storms that raged above, piling snow until masts cracked and hopes withered. Diaries recovered from those doomed journeys speak of nights where men huddled in fear, listening to the wind claw at their shelters like a beast at the door, certain that the next roar would be their last. Yet within that terror lies an awe that no explorer could deny. To witness the aurora dancing while the wind howls across the ice is to see nature in its truest form, violent, beautiful, merciless, sacred. It is as if the universe itself were reminding humanity of its place, small, fragile, and fleeting against the immensity of the elements. The Arctic winds do not kill without reason. They test, they challenge, they demand reverence. Modern science has begun to uncover what lies hidden within those howls. Instruments placed atop ice shelves capture vibrations, frequencies too deep for human ears, resonances born from the friction of air against frozen cliffs. Some call it the voice of the glacier, a low, endless hum carried by the wind across miles of emptiness. Listening to it is unsettling, like eavesdropping on the earth itself. But within those sounds are clues to the planet's health, warnings of cracks forming, of ice weakening, of change accelerating in ways too vast to ignore. And change is the truest constant here. Once the winds carried only cold, unbroken, unyielding. Now they bring warmth to thin layers of air creeping north from lands that should never touch this frozen frontier. They carve not only shapes in snow, but also cracks in time, breaking the traditions of centuries. Where hunters once read the winds as guides, they now find them confused, chaotic, unreliable. The songs have shifted, the voices altered, as though the Arctic itself were gasping under the weight of a fever it cannot shake, to walk across. The ice today is to feel this dissonance firsthand. The wind that once promised guidance now offers uncertainty. The gust that once carried the scent of frozen seas now carries traces of smoke, industry, and loss. And yet, even as it changes, it remains irresistible. The Arctic wind calls. It lures the restless, the curious, the daring. It challenges those who enter its domain to listen, not just with instruments, but with their souls. Because, in the end, the Arctic winds are not only a force of weather, they are memory. They hold the record of every storm, every silence, every shift of earth and sky. To breathe them is to inhale the history of the planet itself. To stand against them is to feel the scale of eternity. And to listen, truly listen, is to understand that what howls across the ice is not emptiness, but the voice of the world reminding us we are only guests. There are moments in the Arctic when the wind does more than howl, it sings. At dusk, when the light bends low and the horizon blurs into shadow, the gusts catch the edges of ice cliffs and turn them into instruments, vibrating with tones that shimmer across the plains. The air becomes a choir, at once haunting and majestic, weaving harmonies too vast for human hands to write. Some explorers describe it as the sound of ghosts. Others call it, but all agree, once you hear it, you are never the same. These songs linger in memory long after the storms pass. They follow those who return south, resurfacing in dreams like echoes that refuse to die. Perhaps it is because the Arctic wind is more than a force of nature. It is a witness. It has seen every ship that dared to cross these waters, every life claimed by the ice, every secret buried beneath the snow. It carries with it the weight of centuries, and with each gust it whispers of all that has been lost and all that may yet vanish. Scientists place microphones deep in the wilderness, recording hours of these spectral voices. They run the data through machines, searching for meaning hidden in the chaos. Patterns emerge, low vibrations that match the rhythm of cracking ice, high tremors that align with shifting pressure fronts. And yet, even as numbers and graphs attempt to cage it, the mystery remains. No chart can capture the feeling of standing alone on a ridge, hair pulled by unseen hands, as the air sings a hymn that seems to come from another world. For those who listen closely, the wind also carries warnings. A sudden change in pitch can mark the arrival of a storm hours before it appears. A drop in rhythm can mean the thinning of ice beneath your feet. For centuries, survival here meant tuning your life to these signals, hearing not just the obvious roar, but the subtler notes buried within. Ignore them and you vanish. Respect them, and the land may spare you, but the land spares fewer now. The winds themselves are shifting, bending under forces far beyond the Arctic. Warm air rises where it should not. Storms spiral in patterns unseen before, and the polar jet stream, once a steady guide of weather wavers like a broken compass. What was once predictable becomes erratic. What was once dependable, the voices grow louder, more desperate, as though the Arctic is crying out for balance it cannot find. And yet, amidst this turmoil, beauty endures. Stand beneath an aurora as it ripples across the night sky, and the wind seems to dance in rhythm, weaving light and sound into a single impossible spectacle. Curtains of green and violet shimmer like the breath of gods, swaying to the unseen music carried by the air. In those moments, terror and wonder blur. The wind may strip flesh from bone, but it also reveals visions. No cathedral, no city, no monument could ever rival. It is destruction and creation, cruelty and grace, all at once. For the traveler who dares to linger, the Arctic wind becomes more than weather. It becomes teacher, companion, adversary, oracle. It strips away illusions, leaving only the raw truth that humanity is small, fragile, and temporary. And in that truth lies both humility and strength. To accept the wind is to accept the world as it is vast. To fight it is to lose. To listen is to learn. Each year, the songs grow stranger. Each decade, the rhythms shift further from what they once were. Some say it is simply climate, the physics of a warming earth. Others wonder if it is something older, something deeper, stirring in the ice itself. Could the winds be carrying not just weather, but memory, a signal from ages buried in frozen silence, a voice waiting to be understood? The answer may lie in what the wind guards. Deep beneath the sheets of ice, it sculpts and shields. For if the air carries echoes of history, what might the frozen caverns below conceal? What stories sleep in the black waters under the glaciers? waiting for the day when the ice can no longer hold them back. And so, as the wind howls one final time across the frozen plains, it leaves us with a question that chills more than the cold ever could. What if the Arctic is not only a place, but a message written in storms, sung in silence, and carried endlessly by the breath of the world, waiting for someone to finally listen? Beneath the crust of the Arctic lies a realm unseen by human eyes, a world sealed away by walls of ice thicker than mountains. To imagine it is to descend into silence, where light itself is banished and time has no meaning. These frozen depths are not simply voids, they are archives, libraries of Earth's hidden past, layered sheet upon sheet, page upon page, each flake of snow pressed into history by the weight of centuries. When explorers speak of drilling into the ice, they are not just piercing frozen water, they are cutting into memory. The cores they lift, long cylinders of compacted snow, red like scrolls. Within them, air bubbles hold the breath of ancient forests, of seas long vanished, of climates both lush and deadly. Each sample becomes a window, a way to inhale the air of another age. In those tiny prisons of frost lies proof that the world has changed before and will change again, yet beyond these measured truths lies something less certain, less defined. For under the glaciers, rivers flow in darkness, lakes the size of cities rest beneath the pressure of miles of ice, untouched by sun for millions of years. These waters are black still and heavy, but not lifeless. In them live microbes older than mankind, organisms that have learned to exist without light, without warmth, without time. They feed on minerals, on chemical exchanges whispered in silence, on the slow erosion of stone. Some say they are echoes of the very first forms of life, survivors of an age when Earth itself was raw and hostile. The discovery of such beings unsettles the imagination. If life can endure here, in this graveyard of cold and pressure, what else might survive in the deeper recesses where human machines cannot reach? Would there be more than microbes? Creatures adapted to black water, eyes replaced by other senses, bodies sculpted by millions of years in a lightless crypt. Every drill, every probe, every camera lowered into those depths feels like the first hesitant knock on a sealed tomb door, and always the question lingers, should we open it? For some, the temptation is irresistible. Scientists dream of unlocking new medicines, new origins, new truths that may shift our understanding of biology and even reshape our grasp of existence itself. To them, the frozen depths are not tombs, but vaults of knowledge. Every sample is an answer, every finding is a key, but to others, the thought is darker. Perhaps these waters were meant to remain untouched. Perhaps what stirs in the black silence was never meant to rise again. There are stories, half myth, half memory of expeditions that reached too far, unexplained malfunctions. Cameras swallowed by sudden shifts, teams that returned with footage too distorted to be trusted, and whispers of shapes moving just beyond the edge of light. Of course, science dismisses such tales as errors, as tricks of the mind in hostile places. But in the stillness of the Arctic night, when the ice cracks like distant thunder, even the most rational mind wonders what waits below, standing on the surface, gazing across a plain that seems eternal. It is almost impossible to grasp that beneath your feet lies a labyrinth, a network of caverns, tunnels, and waterways stretching for untold miles. These are not solid walls, but living veins, moving, shifting, reshaping as the glaciers march toward the sea. To walk across them is to tread on the thin crust above a hidden empire. One step too far, and the earth swallows you whole. And yet, despite the risk, humanity persists. Machines plunge deeper, probes swim through subglacial channels, and data returns in fragments, like messages from another world. Each piece reveals a glimpse of something larger, a system of rivers flowing faster than once believed. Lakes connected like organs in a great frozen body, secrets linked across continents. The ice is not merely a barrier, it is a mask, and beneath it, something immense waits to be revealed. The question is no longer whether there is life in these depths. The question is what kind of life, and how much of it. The silence beneath the Arctic is not empty. It is full of voices we have yet to hear, full of histories we have yet to touch, full of secrets that may change what we believe about Earth, about survival, perhaps even about ourselves. And so, as humanity drills, dives, and descends, one truth becomes unavoidable. The frozen depths are not a passive archive. They are alive, and they are listening. To journey deeper into the frozen underworld is to confront the boundaries of human endurance. Down there, the air grows sharp, as if every breath cuts the lungs with invisible blades. Darkness is no longer the absence of light. It becomes a substance, thick and oppressive, a weight pressing against the eyes. In this realm, the mind begins to invent what it cannot see. Shapes loom in the black, whispers echo without a source, and even the sound of one's heartbeat feels like an intruder in a place that has known silence for eons. The explorers who venture into these ice caverns describe a strange paradox. The deeper they go, the more alive the silence becomes. It is not dead or empty, it hums. The walls themselves seem to breathe, expanding and contracting with the pressure of shifting ice. The floor beneath trembles with distant cracks, as if massive bodies are shifting in unseen chambers. In these vibrations, some hear nothing more than nature's mechanical groan, but others, standing still, swear it feels like a pulse, as though the glacier itself is alive. And within that breathing labyrinth, there are marvels. Some caverns glitter with frozen stalactites, teeth of crystal that reflect the faint glow of headlamps, like stars in an underground sky. Others drip with liquid water that has defied the cold, kept alive by geothermal heat rising from the Earth's core. These pockets of warmth are sanctuaries, creating conditions for life where none should exist. The simplest bacteria cling to their edges, thriving in an environment both alien and hostile. They are fragile, microscopic, and yet their existence is proof that even in Earth's harshest graveyards, persistence is stronger than extinction. But survival has its price. The microbes here are not the same as those on the surface. Isolated for millions of years, they have evolved along paths we can barely imagine. Their DNA carries codes unknown to science, instructions written by pressures and temperatures that no surface life has endured. To study them is to peer into the roots of evolution itself. And with each discovery comes unease. For if they have adapted to thrive in conditions thought impossible, how far might their potential stretch? It is this uncertainty that feeds the darker theories. Some whisper that the microbes are not just survivors, but architects, seeds of something larger, builders of forms yet unseen. If evolution is the endless invention of life, could these hidden waters be breeding grounds for organisms stranger than any fossil, creatures adapted to exist in darkness alone? Legends rise easily in such places among the Inuit and other northern peoples. Stories speak of beings that dwell beneath the ice, not spirits of the sky, but hunters of the underworld, shapeless and waiting. When explorers disappear, when the ice swallows machines whole, these myths are recalled with new weight. For myth, after all, often begins in truth. Even in the scientific world, strange reports linger at the edges. Probes lowered into subglacial lakes sometimes return with corrupted data, images blurred, not by error, but by movement's sudden streaks, shadows, distortions that resemble bodies passing in front of the lens. Samples pulled from the water have, on occasion, contained unexpected fragments, strands of organic matter, too complex for microbes, too incomplete to identify. Most of these findings are filed away, explained as contamination, dismissed as coincidence. Yet for every dismissal, the unease grows. There is also the danger of what humanity may awaken. The ice is not just a cradle, it is a prison. It locks away not only knowledge, but things that may have been sealed with purpose. Viruses preserved in permafrost already hint at this danger. Released into the modern world, they prove capable of reviving after tens of thousands of years. If something more complex sleeps in those black waters, the act of discovery could become the act of release. Still, human ambition drives forward. To stand on the brink of the frozen depths and turn back is unthinkable to explorers who have devoted their lives to unlocking the unknown. The lure is too strong. For every risk, there is the possibility of revelation. Perhaps in the very heart of this darkness lies not danger, but salvation organisms that can unlock cures. Microbes that can teach us how to survive beyond this planet in the icy oceans of moons like Europa and Enceladus. The frozen depths of Earth may be the training ground for journeys yet to come, and so the descent continues. Machines sink deeper, each meter an act of defiance against the weight of eternity pressing above. Data flows upward, fragment by fragment, like messages smuggled from the underworld. The picture is incomplete, fragile, and haunting. But even in its incompleteness, one truth is becoming clear. The frozen depths are not empty, not still, not dead. They are restless. What we awaken in them, or what awakens in us as we uncover them, remains uncertain. But the walls of ice are thinning. The tomb is stirring, and the silence is beginning to speak. To press deeper into the frozen labyrinth is to trespass into a place that feels less like Earth and more like another planet. Every step downward, every meter into the ice, strips away the familiar world above. The sun, the stars, the rhythm of day and night all dissolve into absence. What remains is the raw architecture of nature, sculpted over eons by pressure, water, and time itself. The ice forms vast cathedrals where ceilings vanish into shadows. Columns tower like the pillars of forgotten gods, and arches curve in impossible perfection. It is a beauty that feels holy, but also unwelcoming, as though the place was never meant to be seen by human eyes. Here, the explorers often describe a sensation that defies reason. The silence seems to pulse, not just as vibration, but as presence. It presses against the skin, curls into the ears, and settles in the chest like a weight. Some say it feels like being watched. Others compare it to standing inside a massive lung, inhaling and exhaling with a rhythm too vast to comprehend. Whatever the truth, it unsettles even the bravest hearts. For silence this deep does not feel empty. It feels occupied. In one such cavern, a team lowered a probe into a vertical shaft, filled with water. The beam of its spotlight revealed layers of ice, so pure they were almost invisible, as though the walls were made of glass. Within those layers, bubbles of ancient air gleamed, tiny prisms holding the breath of ages long past. Scientists call them time capsules, each one a perfect record of an atmosphere that no longer exists. But there was something else, faint streaks of dark matter embedded in the ice, too structured to be random, too deliberate to dismiss. Were they geological scars, or the signatures of something older? The probe continued downward, recording every frame until its feed cut abruptly. No sound, no signal, only the black water, still and unbroken. The probe was never recovered. Incidents like these are written off as technical failures, as malfunctions in hostile conditions, and yet their pattern is haunting. Machines vanish, data becomes corrupted, batteries drain at impossible speeds. The environment seems to resist intrusion, as though the ice itself defends its secrets. Some scientists whisper that it is nothing supernatural, only physics, only magnetism, only the immense force of shifting glaciers. But even they admit that the explanation does not calm the feeling in their bones when they stand in those caverns. There are other stories more difficult to dismiss. A diver, trained and cautious, descended into one of the submerged passages. His tether line went slack for several minutes. When he was pulled back, he was alive, but shaken to his core. He spoke of shadows that moved independently of his light, shapes that seemed to recoil from the beam, yet circle him in the periphery. His words were fragmented, his voice trembling. It was not empty, he said. Something moved. After that dive, he never returned to the ice. Yet it is not only fear that grows here, or runs parallel. Imagine standing in a chamber where the ice has folded into layers upon layers, each stratum a page in a book, millions of years long. Within those layers lie histories unseen, ash from ancient volcanoes, dust from deserts that no longer exist, even traces of meteoric material from the cosmos. Every layer is a witness, a record of storms, fires, extinctions. In a sense, to descend into the ice is to descend into memory itself. The earth has written its autobiography here, line by line, preserved in frozen ink. But just as memory can be painful, so too can what the ice reveals. Within some of the cores pulled from the depths are signs of cataclysms the surface has forgotten, evidence of rapid warming, sudden collapses, unexplained shifts in climate events that predate recorded history. It is as though the ice is warning us, whispering of cycles that rise and fall beyond human control. In its silence lies prophecy that what has happened before may happen again. The explorers feel this weight. It is not only scientific, it is personal, almost spiritual. They walk these caverns not just with equipment, but with reverence, as though every footstep might disturb something sacred. And yet, despite their care, the deeper they go, the more fragile the line becomes between discovery and trespass. For in these frozen depths, it is not always clear whether they are unearthing secrets or awakening them. And so the descent continues, fragile and relentless. With every chamber opened, with every meter breached, the feeling grows stronger. The ice does not resist by accident. The silence is not neutral. Something lingers in the depths, watching, waiting, patient as the glacier itself. The deeper one goes, the more the ice ceases to feel like mere frozen water. It transforms into something else, something that carries weight beyond the physical. The explorers often describe the sensation as stepping into a mind, or perhaps a memory, where the walls themselves seem alive with a quiet vigilance. Their lamps sweep across the crystalline surfaces, and patterns emerge. Not random cracks, but delicate symmetries, lines that resemble etchings, spirals, and arcs. They could be fractures, they could be chance. Yet to human eyes, they look purposeful, almost carved. One cavern in particular defies explanation. At its heart lies a dome of ice so smooth and perfect that it reflects light like polished stone. The ceiling above arches into near mathematical symmetry, a hemisphere too precise to have formed without design. In the center, a pool of water rests, unfrozen despite the killing cold. It steams faintly, releasing mist that coils upward like breath. Measurements taken there show temperatures inconsistent with the environment. Some suggest geothermal activity. Others, less willing to confine their imagination, wonder aloud, if this place has been sealed for millions of years, what heat lingers here and why. The water, when tested, reveals anomalies. Microorganisms exist, thriving against all odds, metabolizing chemicals unknown on the surface. Their genetic sequences contain markers not seen elsewhere, hints of adaptations that have no precedent in earthly catalogs. Each discovery opens another door, and behind each door waits a deeper question. Life here evolve in isolation? Or was it preserved from an age before ours, an echo of a world lost beneath shifting climates and seas? But the mysteries do not end with biology. Acoustic tests reveal low-frequency sounds, vibrations that ripple through the ice, even when no movement is present. Some believe these are the groans of glaciers under strain, the earth shifting under its frozen shroud. Yet the patterns of these sounds are too regular, too rhythmic. They echo in intervals, like a heartbeat, slow, steady, patient, and sometimes, when recorded and amplified, they resemble not just tones, but voices. Not words, not language, but something that carries cadence, as though the ice itself is speaking. The effect on those who hear it is profound. Hardened scientists, trained to dismiss superstition, confess unease. Some describe dreams that follow visions of endless ice plains under black skies, structures rising like monuments, shapes moving beneath the surface. Whether the dreams are products of suggestion or something more is impossible to prove, but the pattern persists. Once a person has heard the ice, they carry it with them. Legends from distant cultures speak of voices trapped in frozen lands, of spirits encased until time's end. To the indigenous peoples of polar regions, ice was never inert. It was alive, a keeper of memory, a barrier between worlds. Perhaps these stories were not mere myth. Perhaps they were intuition, born of centuries of living close to forces far larger than human life. And still, explorers return, drawn not only by curiosity, but by a compulsion that defies reason. It is as if the ice calls them back, whispering promises of knowledge too great to ignore. Some resist, others cannot. Expeditions have been abandoned after only days, their teams fractured by dread, their members unwilling to speak of what they saw. Yet just as many have pressed on, unwilling to let fear outmatch discovery. For at the core of this frozen depth lies a truth too vast to remain hidden forever. Whether that truth is natural, a record of Earth's deep memory, preserved in silence, or something else entirely, is still uncertain. But one thing is clear: the boundary between the known and the unknown grows thinner here than anywhere else on the planet. The ice is not just a veil, it is a threshold. As the last chamber of this chapter closes, the imagery lingers. explorers standing at the brink of a glowing abyss. Their lights trembling against walls that seem to breathe, the air heavy with mist and silence. Behind them lies the surface world, warm, bright, familiar. Before them lies only darkness, layered in ice, waiting. They hesitate at the edge, knowing that every step forward is a step into the unknown, and that the unknown may be staring back. The horizon of the Arctic is unlike any other in the world. It stretches outward as though it has no end, a place where sky and earth merge into one seamless canvas of white and pale blue. To stand here is to confront infinity. The frozen air cuts sharply, biting into skin and lungs, yet the silence is heavier than the cold. It is not the silence of absence, but the silence of presence, vast, watchful, eternal. One cannot help but feel that the horizon itself holds secrets, waiting for those willing to endure long enough to see them. For centuries, maps ended here. Sailors who dared to push northward wrote of walls of ice rising from the sea like fortresses, barriers that mocked their ambitions. Some described waters that seemed to boil with mist, as if the ocean itself resisted intrusion. Others swore they saw lands that later vanished, islands of stone and ice that no chart could ever find again. These stories were dismissed by some, but to others they were omens, fragments of truth glimpsed through the shifting veil of the polar world. Today, satellites scan every inch of the Arctic, yet even with technology, mysteries persist. Instruments register voids beneath the ice, hollow spaces where geology offers no explanation. Strange temperature shifts ripple across the frozen plains, flickering like invisible fires under the snow. Compasses twitch in defiance, as though invisible hands reach up from below, pulling at the needles. Data alone cannot soothe the unease. For those who step onto this frontier, it is not numbers or charts that weigh most heavily. It is the feeling. There is a wordless recognition that the Arctic is not only geography, it is an idea. To explore here is to test the limits, not just of endurance, but of belief. Can the world still hold secrets untouched by satellites, by cameras, by science? The frozen horizon answers with silence, daring us to look closer from time to time. Explorers report visions that blur the line between reality and mirage. Structures glint on the horizon, only to vanish when approached. Lights flicker in the sky. One research team swore they saw a vast circular formation beneath thin ice, a pattern too exact to dismiss as accident. By the time reinforcements arrived, storms had swallowed the site, and the ice reformed in silence. Legends rise easily in such a place. Whispers of civilizations sealed away, their knowledge preserved beneath glaciers. Myths of gateways, passages leading not only to hidden chambers of the earth, but perhaps to other realms altogether. Science resists such claims, but stories are resilient, passed from expedition to expedition, carried like contraband hope. What if the horizon is not an end at all? What if it is a door? Standing at the edge, a single figure can feel smaller than a grain of sand. The ice stretches outward, unbroken, the wind sweeping across it in waves that sound almost like voices. Every footstep leaves a temporary scar, quickly erased by snow. It is as though the land itself refuses to acknowledge intrusion. And yet, despite this erasure, despite the weight of the unknown, humanity continues to step forward. The call of the horizon is irresistible. It is the place where our search for meaning collides with the vast indifference of nature in the stillness. One thought repeats itself like a drumbeat. The Arctic is not empty. It watches, it remembers, and it waits. The journey deeper into the Arctic is never measured only in miles. It is measured in endurance, in the way the cold reshapes thought and memory, in the way silence presses against the mind. To those who have walked these plains, time itself begins to dissolve. The rising and setting of the sun lose meaning, replaced by endless light or endless dark. Hours blur into one another, until all that remains is the rhythm of footsteps, the crunch of boots on snow, the whisper of breath crystallizing into air dot. And yet, within this monotony, the Arctic reveals itself. The eye learns to read its subtle shifts. A change in the wind carries scents that do not belong, salt from an unseen sea, or sulfur rising from fissures in the ice. The snow hides textures, concealing ridges that crumble under weight, or disguising deep crevasses as smooth ground. To survive here is to develop senses sharper than instinct, to notice the almost invisible signs that separate safety from oblivion. Beyond the human struggle lies something larger, something geological. The Arctic breathes, not in the way lungs do, but in the heaving of ice sheets that expand and contract with the seasons. The land moans in the dark, echoing through ice caves like a cathedral organ. At night, when the aurora paints the sky in rivers of green, explorers speak of the ground vibrating faintly, as though the world itself were stirring beneath them. Some call it seismic activity. Others hesitate to give it any name at all. Mystery thrives where explanation falters. Stories persist of strange warmth beneath the snow, of pools of liquid water steaming in the midst of frozen emptiness. In one expedition's log, a scientist described standing before a chasm where the ice glowed with an inner light, as though lit from below by fires of a forgotten age. He wrote that the air vibrated with sound too low for ears to hear, but too deep for the body to ignore. The journal ended abruptly. No one knows what became of him. Such tales may be dismissed as exhaustion or the tricks of a mind pushed to its limits, but they spread nonetheless, shared in quiet tones among researchers, whispered around the dim glow of campfires. The Arctic does not simply test bodies, it unsettles certainty. In the presence of so much silence, even the strongest convictions waver. What if there are truths here, beyond the grasp of reason? What if the horizon conceals not only geography, but revelation? The sea, too, holds its enigmas. Beneath the frozen cap lies an ocean as vast as any on Earth, restless and shifting. Submarines that dive here report walls of ice descending into blackness, forming labyrinths that twist for miles. Strange sounds echo through the depths, clicks and pulses that no creature has yet been identified to produce. Some insist they are mechanical, the remnants of forgotten machines. Others believe they belong to forms of life we cannot yet imagine. The farther one pushes, the stronger the sensation grows that the Arctic is not a place to be conquered, but a boundary to be respected. Its power is not only in storms or ice, but in the way it bends the human spirit, stripping away arrogance until all that remains is awe. The horizon is both promise and warning. It dares explorers to step forward, but it never yields fully. What lies beyond is glimpsed only in fragments, like reflections in shattered glass. And so the Arctic endures, infinite and untamed. It remains the mirror in which humanity confronts its own hunger for discovery and its own fragility. Beyond the horizon lies not only land and sea, but the reminder that some mysteries are not meant to be solved. They are meant to remain, to call us forward, to haunt us, to teach us the humility of standing before the endless dot at the edges of the Arctic, where maps blur into uncertainty and compasses falter. The horizon feels less like a line and more like a veil. It shifts and bends with the weather, never stable, always luring with the suggestion that something waits just beyond reach. Those who follow it long enough learn that the horizon is not a destination. It is a question, one that grows heavier with every mile traveled across the white expanse. The question is simple, yet endless. What is hidden beneath the ice, beneath the seas, beneath the silence? For centuries, myths have flourished in the absence of answers. Early sailors told of openings at the poles, gateways to inner worlds lit by a sun within the earth. Others imagined great civilizations entombed in ice, their monuments buried but intact. Even now, whispers circulate of anomalies spotted by satellites, of heat signatures that defy natural explanation, of geometric patterns traced into the snow by forces unknown. Most of these tales vanish under scrutiny, dismissed as tricks of light, errors in equipment, or imagination fed by isolation, yet the allure remains. The Arctic, by its very nature, resists full knowledge. Its storms swallow instruments, its cold disables machines, its shifting ice destroys the very tools meant to measure it. In this resistance, mystery survives. And perhaps it is this resistance that keeps drawing explorers back, generation after generation, knowing they may not conquer, but still compelled to try. The silence deepens as one moves away from familiar roots. Here, footsteps become the loudest sound, amplified by the stillness. The air seems to hold each noise too long, stretching echoes into something unnatural. Even breathing feels intrusive, as though one is disturbing a slumbering presence. The Arctic does not scream, it waits, and in its waiting, it becomes something more than landscape. It becomes a presence, vast and impassive, watching without eyes, speaking without voice. At night, under endless stars, the sense of scale becomes overwhelming. The sky arches so wide, it feels as though the world has no edges. Auroras spill across the heavens like rivers of light, bending and twisting in silence, drenching the snow in hues of green and violet. Beneath their glow, shadows stretch across the plains, giving the impression of movement where none exists. Many explorers describe moments when the land itself seems alive, shifting, pulsing, breathing. Whether this is illusion or revelation remains a matter of belief. Beneath the ice, the unseen world grows stranger still. Scientists speak of entire mountain ranges buried below, taller than the Alps, sharper than any known peaks, sealed away for millions of years. Subglacial lakes, vast and dark, hold waters untouched since before humanity existed. When probes have pierced these hidden realms, the discoveries defy expectations. Microbes thrive in the darkness, living off minerals and chemical reactions, ecosystems existing in perfect isolation. To peer into them is to peer into Earth's past, and perhaps into the possibilities of life beyond it. And yet, the more we uncover, the more the horizon retreats. Each discovery leads not to closure, but to deeper questions. If life can survive in such extremes here, what else might endure in silence, hidden from our senses? If mountains can sleep beneath ice for ages, what histories might they conceal? The Arctic offers no answers. It only multiplies the riddles, as though designed to remind us that certainty is fragile, and that knowledge itself has boundaries in the end. The horizon remains as it always has, distant, unreachable, eternal. We walk toward it, we dream of it, but we never arrive. It is the Arctic's final truth, not because they cannot be found, but because they are infinite. And so long as the horizon stretches before us, glowing faintly in the frozen light, humanity will continue to chase it, not to conquer, but to wonder. The Arctic does not offer closure, it offers reflection. Those who come here expecting to unlock every mystery leave with heavier questions than when they arrived, and yet this is its gift. It teaches that mystery is not failure, it is the essence of discovery itself. To walk upon this frozen frontier is to stand within the living paradox of Earth, a land that appears silent but is alive with voices, a place that seems barren but is rich with secrets, a horizon that retreats forever but keeps us moving forward. The explorers who dared these latitudes carried not only tools and maps, but dreams. Dreams of finding what no one else had seen. Dreams of planting a flag on untouched ground, of carving their names into the story of the world. Some found triumph, many found tragedy. Their bones rest beneath the snow, their ships lie entombed in ice, their last words scattered in journals frozen stiff. Yet through them, and sacrifice echoing across centuries. Science, too, continues the story. Satellites sweep the skies, submersibles descend through ice shafts, sensors drink in data from places humans cannot yet endure. Each fragment adds to a mosaic we can never quite complete. Climate records, ancient air bubbles, fossilized microbes, all whisper of a planet older, stranger, and more fragile than we thought. And as the ice thins, as cracks widen, as storms intensify, the Arctic reveals not just its past, but our future. It is a mirror reflecting the choices we have made and the consequences that await to stand here. At the edge of frozen seas is to feel that mirror press against the soul. The wind bites not only the skin, but the conscience. It asks, what will you do with this knowledge? What will you carry forward? The Arctic does not belong to any nation, any empire, any single dreamer. It belongs to time, and time is slipping. For as ice melts, it unveils landscapes unseen for millions of years. Rivers carve new paths, revealing cliffs painted with colors no human eye has traced before. Creatures migrate, shifting the rhythms of ecosystems. Aurora still sweeps the sky, indifferent to our presence, majestic as ever. There is loss, yes, but also revelation. Out of endings, beginnings rise. The horizon, that eternal companion, stretches before us even now. It does not fade with knowledge, but expands. Each discovery adds new distance, new depth. We may never reach it. The point is to chase, to walk into silence, to breathe in cold that burns the lungs, to listen for voices hidden in the wind, to know that somewhere, beneath ice or sea or shadow, something waits. And so, the story does not end here. It cannot. The Arctic waits, as it always has, patient and silent, holding secrets beyond imagination. Its ice will shift, its winds will change, its horizons will remain. Generations will come. As the aurora dances, as the winds whisper over shattered plains of ice, we remember this. The horizon is not meant to be caught. It is meant to call, and so long as it calls, humanity will walk toward it restless, searching, alive. The Arctic does not need us, but we need the Arctic. For within its silence lies the reminder that wonder is endless, that mystery is eternal, that life itself is a journey without conclusion. And so, the horizon stretches on, and we step forward once more into the white.